I've got a lifelong resident of Athens, Tennessee, who is now the president of Tennessee Wesleyan. And this guy has got rave reviews. And he's joining me today. Usually you have forgotten something.
They say if you step back a few steps, you might remember what it is. I do that all the time.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you do that, I'm on to something else.
Yeah.
Or I'm out of it. I was going to print something here. These computers, you always hear that bong, 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 where you've hit the wrong button. That's the way I did it last time. I wish they'd keep that stuff the same way all the time.
Yeah, things change every time, don't they?
I mean, I would rather it just be not as efficient, but the same.
Yeah.
That's more efficient to me.
It can be. You're exactly right.
They're always changing this technology.
So
now you're the first Tennessee Wesleyan CEO and president that's actually homegrown.
That's right.
That's something, isn't it?
It is something. It's kind of astonishing if you think about Tennessee Wesleyan's 167-year history, that there hadn't been another person born in McMinn County in this role. So I'm honored to be the first in that number of years. There's been a few with strong local connections through the years, but never anybody born and raised there.
They say an expert's a guy with a briefcase 50 miles from home.
Yeah, I've heard
maybe
that.
Maybe that's the reason.
Well, when they picked me to come back, I wasn't but about 60 miles from home, so I wasn't too far.
Think about Tennessee Wesleyan 167 years ago. That would have been, what, 1857 maybe?
1857.
And that would have been... the movie Gunsmoke was set in 1860.
Yes.
So you figure
about the same time period.
And they wouldn't have had a fancy college in Gunsmoke.
No way. And it wasn't then either. Wesleyan started out as Athens Female Academy in the building where my office is today, Old College, that was completed in 1857. It's a phenomenal
I've been
building.
in there.
Have you?
Yeah.
Great piece of local and regional history. And the campus evolved over the next few decades. It became U.S. Grant University, and the president of U.S. Grant University wanted to capitalize on the death of Ulysses S. Grant, who of course was the most popular man in America when he died. So he changed the name to Grant Memorial University. And then it became the Athens campus, the University of Chattanooga, and then finally in 1925 became Tennessee Wesleyan College.
How did they break it off from UTC? Did you say UTC?
Yeah, University of Chattanooga.
Yeah, Chattanooga.
Prior to UTC becoming a part of the system, but there was a group, I believe it was from 1889 to 1925, the two campuses were merged, and there was a lot of friction between Athens and Chattanooga at the time, because the Athens campus was older than the Chattanooga campus, but obviously the wealth and the population resided in Chattanooga. So again, a lot of friction there, but finally a group of citizens from both Athens and Chattanooga came together and said, they felt like it was best if the two institutions were finally divided. So they were, and I honestly think that was a good decision at the time because it let them both, function independently. And really, the University of Chattanooga stayed of a similar size for a number of years until it became a state institution in 1969.
Now, Tennessee Wesleyan is primarily Methodist, right? Is that...
Been associated with...
Yes,
it's been a part of the Methodist Church since 1857 as well, and it survived a number of mergers and splits. It's really been a constant throughout that entire time, but we're proud of that Methodist heritage and really are a strong faith-based institution with students from a variety of different
Yeah.
denominations, which we're very proud of.
Wonder why the Methodists were so big around this region at that time, because they were trying to convert a lot of the Indians, weren't they? Because there's Methodist church all over during that time.
Well, there were, and I'm not a Methodist historian, but if you look at, the Methodist preachers were often circuit riders at the time.
Yeah.
So they had multiple churches in their circuit, and I think just traveled around the area and planted churches and colleges and things like that, which was much needed at the time.
It was a great outreach to the Indians.
Yeah.
What was the Indians? What were they pulling them from? Wonder what their religious beliefs were. I haven't really studied that.
I don't know. I would have to study that as well. I'm not really sure.
I'm sure it was something.
Yeah.
Humans have always gone to
believe in something. Yes, I agree totally.
So
I don't know.
Maybe it was the Mother Earth or the sun or.
You'll have to interview a Native American scholar on that one. I'm not quite sure.
I get a lot of. I've talked to a lot of them. I get a lot of little different nuances in that stuff. I'd like to really talk. And they might have been different, just like us, different. This guy believes this and this guy believes that.
Yes. No, you're exactly right. But I was going to tell you a minute ago when I mentioned U.S. Grant University, when the name was switched to that, the president of U.S. Grant University at the time, he wanted Ulysses S. Grant to be a donor to the institution. So he reached out to him, and Ulysses S. Grant was one of the very first donors to the institution, which I always thought that was a neat story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Tennessee Wesleyan being right downtown, and I'm familiar with it. I've eaten there in the cafeteria.
Oh, yeah. Great place to eat.
Carl Collins, Carl?
No finer, of course.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. I've eaten there with him, and was it not the last, Wallace.
Yeah, Larry Wallace.
Larry Wallace.
Yeah.
And the other guy. What was the other guy under him? Can't think of his name. It was a real unique name.
I'm not sure.
He was across the hall from Larry Wallace.
Was it Grant Wilhite?
Nope. It's a distinct name.
I don't know.
It had a P. Started with a P, maybe?
I don't know.
Can't think of his name. Were you the one that came in after Larry?
Well, Larry had been in a senior vice president role. Harley Knowles.
Harley Knowles. That's
probably
who I
you're
know.
thinking
Yeah.
of. Yes,
Where did I get P from?
I don't know.
Maybe it's Harley P. Knowles. I think that's his middle initial.
I think it's G,
Oh.
actually. You're close.
Well, they both had a.
That's right, a little bit of a curve.
Curve,
right?
that's
We'll
right.
say you're right.
Yeah.
How about that? Harley Knowles. He was in the role for right at 11 years before I was, and he retired in June of 2022, officially.
So he was there, because you came in, March or something like that? May?
I started July 1 of 2022, and he had been there for 11 years prior to that.
You
Did a
came
great
right
job.
after the COVID, I guess.
I
or
did.
was it in the middle of it?
Certainly at the end of it. We still had a few lingering COVID issues that we quickly worked through, but it was pretty well over. I spent most of all of my COVID years at UTC.
Did that make it difficult for you did they really do a lot of masking up, or were they just sort of everybody kind of on their own, or in classrooms, or how did that work?
At both institutions, there was, social distancing in classrooms and masks and things like that. There was so much uncertainty at the beginning of the pandemic. Nobody knew what was right or wrong.
Nobody knew,
so it evolved over time. And
it usually hit mostly in the summers, it seems like. That's probably when the colleges were the least active.
Yeah, there were some spikes. That first time in March of 2020, that most institutions were on spring break at the time. Right. And we all thought we would come back in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Just let it pass and be right back in swing.
That's what we all thought.
And boy, was that an incorrect assumption at the time. That was definitely one of the most difficult periods of my career and so many others, kind of navigating that with a lot of other people.
Yeah, a lot of different opinions and stuff.
Yeah, it was.
How do you? You're originally. What part of Athens? Are you East Denali?
I do go to East Denali Baptist Church, but I grew up in the City Park area of Athens and went to City Park Elementary. And
Where's that at? What part is that?
it's right near probably like Keith Church. That's a great landmark.
No, I don't know where that's
kind
at.
of off Madison Avenue.
Madison Avenue.
There, near where the Walgreens is, there on Madison Avenue, kind of in that area.
There's that's sort of a four-way, sort of.
Yeah.
Three-way or
Yeah,
something.
right in that area. Sure is.
So you grew up visiting Etowah a lot, I guess, because
Yeah.
that was just down the road.
Been to Etowah, yeah. My family's been in McMinn County since 1819. So
1819.
Yeah.
God.
So a long time, and I feel like I've been in every part of it one time or another.
Is the Midway still going, the drive-in?
It sure is during the summers. Yes.
I've never been there.
You'll have to come up.
Never been there.
I have been, but it's been a long time.
But it's still active.
It is. It's a popular place. It sure is.
I like a drive-in.
Yeah.
The popcorn, the hot dogs,
It's
all
a
that.
great environment.
Yeah.
It's
Do they have the playground down at the front like they used to years ago?
I couldn't say. I don't know.
That always went with wasn't it?
Yeah, I do remember that from the times I went.
It was always a playground. I guess because you could watch TV
Yeah,
and
play.
watch the kids.
Let the kids entertain themselves under the movie theater. Yeah. It's a neat place.
But Athens is a great town, the friendly city, right?
The friendly city. We're very proud of that. It is a great town. I consider myself extremely blessed to have grown up in Athens, and then to have be able to live there now and raise my own family there is a really neat thing.
How long were you gone?
I was in Chattanooga for a total of 16 years. I did live, for the last 5 of those years, though, I'd lived in Athens and I commuted back and forth. We had the opportunity to move into a home that had been in my family for about 80 years at that point, and so my wife and I decided that, we ought to give it a try, see if we would like it or not, and I thought we would, and we really did, and it was a little bit of an inconvenience for me to drive, but in some ways I always enjoyed the drive, too.
About how long a drive was it?
It took me 57 minutes from my driveway to my parking spot at UTC.
35 minutes is fine.
Yeah.
And a little bit longer than that, it's got to be a pretty easy drive or...
Yeah, I mean, driving down here today, it's nothing. I think it took me 32 minutes, something like that.
Just enough time to turn the radio on.
Yeah, not a big deal.
Which way did you come, 411?
I did. I always enjoyed coming down
Didn't get a
411.
ticket, did you? Speeding ticket?
No, you always have to look out in Charleston or Calhoun,
Yeah.
either one.
Got to stop and start.
That's right. Those unmarked cars, they're always parked there. Never fails.
Never fails.
No.
Did they have somebody stopped when you came down?
No, but I did see the black car in Calhoun parked there.
He's stopping somebody right now,
Oh,
probably.
no doubt. I've actually never had a speeding ticket, so I try hard.
It's hard to drive from Riceville down, and you're trucking along at 50, 55 miles an hour.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, the sign's there, but they done caught you.
Yes, they're looking for you. They're always sitting right there when the speed bump or when the speed changes.
Right.
So. That's part of it.
If you slowed
though.
down that fast, somebody hit rear end you.
Yeah, you're right. They're probably looking for you to slow down that fast.
So now Athens, what was it like growing up there?
Not to make it too cliche, but it really was kind of Mayberry in its own way. Knowing everybody and going to church with people and school with people really just a wonderful place, a true community, in my opinion. I mean, Cleveland certainly is that too, but just on a larger scale. But I can't imagine having grown up anywhere different, honestly. I just feel like the school system was great, to have all my family there, parents, grandparents. I was lucky to know many of my great-grandparents that lived there too. It's just a really fun time, great memories growing up there.
Forrest, was that the Forrest family? Is that the one that's been there so long, or was
Yeah, really, my mother and my father's family both have been around since that early 19s, 20. Yeah, both sides.
That's a long time, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is a long time. Yeah.
How about these people that move off to, like in their 20s and stay gone for 20 or 30 years? I just couldn't do it. Could you?
No, I couldn't. When I moved off, when I went to Chattanooga, I always had a desire to come back, but I honestly just didn't see a path to do it. I thought my only option was to really move back and drive. But of course, things do work out eventually, and it did work out. But I'd kind of succumbed to the fact, well, maybe we're just going to live in Chattanooga or somewhere else, even if I do have that desire. But it is interesting how things work out. But to your point, I know people right now that grew up in Athens and hadn't lived there in 20 or 30 years, and they're wanting to move back, because they're more mobile in their jobs and careers and things like that. So I do think you're going to see more people moving into rural areas, even though I wouldn't consider Athens extremely rural. It's certainly more rural than a lot of places in our country.
If I had to just pick somewhere that I had to live and stay, I'm not so sure Etowah wouldn't be where I'd go. I mean, you got the Tellico River.
Yeah.
You drive up to Webb Store and the Hiawassee River.
Yeah.
You're close to Athens. They got everything you want there.
At the Farmhouse Restaurant.
Farmhouse Restaurant.
You can't beat that.
Is that still associated with the one in Cleveland, or is it two separate owners
I
now?
honestly don't know.
I know at one time it was.
Yeah.
But the one in Athens, in Etowah's upper scale.
Yeah, that's the folks that have always owned it, and it's a great place.
You can't get in hardly.
No, not at lunch, that's for sure. Yeah.
What do you like to eat there the most?
I will tell you, they've got one of the best hamburger steaks in the world.
Fried onions or fried peppers?
Both.
Mushrooms or
I'm
just
not a mushroom fan.
your bell pepper?
Bell pepper and onion
They
fan.
don't give you a little indigestion?
No, they don't bother me.
They give me a little indigestion
Do they?
now. Yeah. Used to not.
Yeah. You can't beat that there, though.
They don't have hot slaw. They just got
No, they do
slaw.
have hot
They
slaw,
have hot slaw
and
too?
it's very good.
When I was building, I built Oak Quarry Regional Health Corporation
Yes.
in Polk County.
Uh-huh.
And had an elevator in there, and the elevators are all union people.
Right.
And you don't talk to union people. Nobody talks to union people. You have to call the main headquarters, and they talk to them. So I was having a real hard time getting the elevator people to communicate with the electricians.
Uh-huh.
And the electricians were desperately needing some questions. Well, we were up there, the only place at that time was the pizza place. It was just that period of time where it was just the pizza place and the Sonic.
Yeah.
So one day I thought, boy, how can I get these people to talk to them without having to go through the headquarters? So I called Farmhouse. I said, do y'all cater? And they said, yeah. And so I catered lunch there.
Uh-huh.
They brought out those, paper tablecloths, but it was, silverware, but it looked a little fancy. And
Sure.
next thing I know, the electricians and the elevator people are sitting next to each other, eating chicken, solving all the issues. And so I did that every day for like the 2 months before we was done. So
Yeah.
solved all the problems. But it was good food.
Good food will sometimes solve the world's
You ever eat
problems.
GG's over in Polk County?
Is that the one there in Benton?
Yep.
Yes, I have eaten there. That's good
It
too.
is really good.
Yes, it is. It sure is. I know exactly where you're talking about. I stopped there for lunch. It's probably been 4 or 5 months ago, but it was very good.
It's as good a food as you'll eat. And the farmhouse is too.
Yeah.
It's just that you don't expect it right there at Benton for some reason, because as far as not saying nothing against Benton, I'm just saying
Yeah.
it was next to the pizza place, and you don't
Yes.
expect something right along that line.
No, but it is a good place. I had a few minutes to spare, and I stopped there and enjoyed every second of it.
How about Cotton's place?
Hadn't been there.
It's good hamburgers too.
Is it? Okay. I'll remember that.
I'm a food connoisseur.
I can tell.
Now, when you went to Athens, or when you were in Athens and you went to UTC,
Yeah.
were you studying to be you weren't, hey, as far as being president of, is that what your position, president or CEO, or do you
President.
say the both things?
Well, they kind of operate simultaneously, but president's
If it's
my
a business,
title.
you'd be CEO. If it's education, it's president.
Right, that's correct.
But you had no clue.
No, it wasn't on my radar. I went to UTC, and having never really been in a bigger city before, I wanted to get out of there as quick as I got there, and I actually expedited my academic schedule to graduate in 3 years. But after a semester, I started getting involved and enjoying it more, and ended up having a great undergraduate career at UTC and got to do a lot of wonderful things. But I actually got a degree in finance. I thought I wanted to go to law school, though. I went to a meeting in Nashville when I was in my junior year. I had the opportunity to serve on the UT Board of Trustees as a student member, so I went to the meeting in Nashville at the law firm, and I asked the receptionist at the front desk, I said, "Can you point me to the restroom?" And she pointed me down there. She said, "Go down the long hall, it's on your right." So I walked down the long hall, looking at attorneys on both sides, and I thought, these people are miserable. Paper stacked everywhere.
Yeah.
There's no way I could be an attorney. So at that point, I decided maybe I just need to stick to business. And so I graduated from UTC during the Great Recession, and coming by a job at that time was very difficult. Unlike today, we're desperate for workers in almost every sector.
Recession? 08?
08, 09, 10. And I had applied at 100 different places and had 3 interviews and I had more than 3 interviews, had 3 job offers. And one of them was to be a financial analyst at UTC. And I thought, well, I'm familiar with that. I'll do that for a couple years. My other options were banking, but the financial analyst sounded more interesting. So I did that and benefited from a few retirements and working hard, and moved my way up in the organization, and finished there as the chief financial officer before I left in June of 2022. So a great run. I loved every second of it, but I never imagined, to your original question, never really imagined being a university president. Even when Dr. Knowles announced his retirement in November of 2021, it wasn't on my radar either. But at that time, I was at a conference in South Carolina, business officers conference, and a good friend of mine in Athens sent me a text, and he said, "Tyler, Dr. Knowles is retiring. You need to apply for that job." And I just kind of brushed it off, to be honest with you. Came back home, and within 2 weeks, 25 people said, "Tyler, you need to apply for that job." And I thought, well, maybe I should look into applying for that job. I'm a very spiritual person, but honestly, that level of push, I had never felt that before. So I really prayed about it and thought about it, and it did seem like the right thing to do after talking with some folks like Larry Wallace, who you mentioned, and several others. And it began to really come together. And I applied, and I never thought I would get it. There were 65 candidates, highly qualified, and I made my way through the process and ended up, I guess the rest is history, and I did get it. But I never really saw that. I thought I would become maybe the chief financial officer of a large system of universities, like the University of Tennessee or another university system like that, or a larger campus maybe. But things do work out, and I'm glad they have worked out the way they have.
Well, who better to have in charge of a school than a financial analysis analyst?
Yeah,
I guess that would be more important on that level than an educator. Would you say?
It's a big part of the job. I spend probably 25% of my time on campus finances, working closely with our CFO, who does a wonderful job, probably 25% on academics, 25% on fundraising, and then 25% on student engagement, community engagement, all of the above.
But that's sort of student stuff is sort of a different thing, isn't it? I mean, it's slightly different than just, in other words, slightly different than the business end. Yeah,
I mean, the student engagement sector of the institution doesn't often overlap with the financial, and you don't want it to, honestly. Students are there for a great experience and a good education.
That's what I was saying. The students deserve to have a good 2 to 4 year college experience like they've seen, on Happy Days and that sort of stuff. I guess that's still a thing. I didn't go to college. I went to college for a day and a half. but I can see where it would be very. If I had to again, I'd probably gone to college.
Well, the academic piece of it is so important, and you can carry that with you the rest of your life. But the student life piece of it, you often learn some of your greatest life lessons from that, and you carry those with you too. I talk to alums every single day from starting I think the older alums usually graduate in the 1950s now, all the way through, the 2000s. And almost every single one of them comment to me on how much they enjoyed their student experience. And that doesn't get lost on me either, because I think that is super important, whether it's engaging in athletics or going to games or outdoor recreation or various different clubs and organizations. It's super important.
The clubs in school help you prepare for the business world because you have budgets, you have to raise money, you have to make money, you have to have attendance, you have to have somebody keeping the schedule, and people play their part, and they learn if they like that part or if they don't like that part.
Well, a lot of it, my PhD is in learning and leadership, so I studied learning at that level. And if you look at adult learners, we often learn hands-on. You're probably no different than I am. I learn hands-on, especially today. So I think if you can get students engaged outside of the classroom to practice what they're learning in the classroom, and that may be in student life or it could be in an internship or something like that, that's when the real learning takes place, because the light bulbs go off. That's what you want to see students, and then they're more real-world prepared when they graduate.
If you talk to most people, the biggest mistakes they made was from the time they were 18 to 24 or 25, when their life went different directions. And if you had them captive right there, you're doing something.
Yeah, no doubt.
by not making a lot of other mistakes.
Well, if you're going to make a mistake, 18 to 24 is a whole lot better than when you're a lot older than that.
It is just true.
Yeah, and everybody makes mistakes. I have, and I'm sure you have too.
Oh, yeah, I'll make a few next week.
Me too.
I'm trying to figure out what it is I forgot earlier to do. I've got that feeling I forgot something.
It's going to click with you.
It'll click, and when it does, I'll say, oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
You ever go home and you think, well, I forgot something, and you realize you didn't even check your email, something that major?
Yes, I have. I feel like I do that all the time. That's why I've got good help and a calendar, and I always set reminders on my phone all the time.
Do the reminders annoy you, or are they a nest? Do you set them through what? Outlook, or do you set them through your Google Calendar, or what do you do?
Outlook reminders, and I also use an app called the To-Do app, which is a Microsoft product. It links with Outlook. And then, the iPhone has a to-do list on it too, and I set reminders on that as well. I've got reminders going all the time on my phone.
I've got a simple alarm clock, a little simple alarm app, and I can put it recurring. And to me, that's a little better than all that other stuff.
Different people use different things.
I'll be talking to somebody that's into the tech world kind of, and I'll say, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And I'll leave them, and I'll get an email saying, will you be attending this? I thought, well, I just left them, but they want me to push that button so they can put it on their Outlook.
Right.
I'm thinking, there's got to be some.
They want you to accept their invite. Yeah.
And I just left them.
Yeah, I understand.
Do you think that a lot of this, like when you're sitting and working on the computer and doing your stuff at the office, and I'm sure you have to.
Yeah.
Do you ever get where all of a sudden the printer doesn't work?
Yes.
Or got to put your passcode to, all of a sudden you're Google Gmail's asking for your password all of a
Then
sudden.
you got to remember it.
Well, you don't know if it's a scam.
Right.
Maybe even a scam.
Yeah, we had a printer out at work a couple weeks ago, and and I don't print very much, but of course the one time I need to print something, the printer was out. Luckily, they're all networked together, so I was able to go to another one. But
I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I had trouble with my computer, and he was trying to help. Or he said he had my phone, and he said, "What's your password?" And I was so embarrassed to tell him my password was his phone number. That's just the way I remember. I said, "Your phone number," and he thought I was kidding. And my password on my phone was his phone number. That's how I remembered it.
I often use phone numbers of sorts. I'm not going to tell you who they are because you could go look them up. But yes,
That's right,
I do
that's
remember.
right.
I do use that.
Now, in Athens, how far did you grow up from the hospital? Not too far, right?
No, probably a mile and a half tops. I was born at that hospital right there.
Is that right?
I sure was.
That's a good hospital. I had a friend of mine go there here a while back. It was
is.
a really...
They do a wonderful job. John McLean, who runs it, he's a first-class CEO and his team.
Is that independent owned or what?
No, it's I think an HCA subsidiary, some sort. Life. Oh, I should know that, but Life Point. I think it's a Life Point hospital. Yeah.
Did you do any sports in high school or in college?
Played golf in junior high in my first couple years in high school, and honestly, I got burnt out on it, and I never didn't pick up a club for about a little over 20 years. And last summer, I decided I was going to give it a shot again, and I honestly played better than I did 20 years ago. I had forgotten all my bad habits.
Where did you play at? Or where do you normally play at?
I mean, Springbrook growing up is where I often played, but Athens got a couple courses, and then we had our campus annual golf tournament up at Kahiti in Von Orr. It's a beautiful course, part of Tellico Village up there.
Yeah, I know where you're talking about it. Right, Von Orr's where that girl that was on America's Got Talent, she got real far down. Remember that?
Yeah, I do vaguely remember that. She was from Von Orr.
She was from Von Orr, and I
Yeah.
was building that pharmacy at Tellico Village
Okay.
while she was, and I thought, wonder if I drove down there if I'd see her, but I don't think, she made it to like number 5 or something
Yeah.
like that. I
I
wonder whatever
remember reading
happened to
that
her.
in the newspaper.
I wonder
Yeah.
whatever happened to her.
I don't know. You have to look it up. and
Von
find
Orr's
out.
hard to get to. It's kind of,
It is. It's a
Well-
little off the beaten path.
there's nothing there now, is there?
Not a lot, but I mean, it's amazing all that Tellico Village has brought into that area.
It is amazing.
Who would have ever thought?
It's almost its own little
It's its own community.
own city sort of
Yeah.
thing. I went down there, and this was in actually '08, I think, about '08 or first of '09, and I was building that pharmacy, and I looked across the street, and it said inspections office. So I walked over there, and I said, I need to get a permit. And they said, well, we don't have to have permits. I said, no permits? They said, well, just a sign permit.
Right.
And I said, well, I'm not doing the sign. The owner's doing that. So I went back and started building. We hung the sheetrock. This is a true story.
Yeah.
Hung the sheetrock. This guy comes in. He says, where's your permit? I said, well, we don't have a permit. He said, why? And I said, well, the inspections office told us we didn't have a permit. And he said, well, I'm from the permit office, McMahon Permit Office. No, Loudon.
Loudon. Yeah, Loudon County.
Loudon County. And I said, no. I said, right there's your office. He said, no, that's the Tellico Village inspections. You're in Loudon. And I had to take all the sheetrock off,
Oh gosh.
one side of each wall,
So he could see in it.
so he could see in it. And that he left at 4 o'clock. We took all the sheetrock off that evening. The next morning, I went down there, told him he could look at it. He came by at 9:30, looked at it. We put all the sheetrock back up, and we're at the Mexican restaurant at noon. I thought, boy, what a 12 hours.
I agree. That's
But that's when I learned to say, which inspection company are you from?
Hey, we all learn something every day.
Yeah.
You did
But
that.
anyway, that was, now, is it East Denali or East, is that how you say
East
it?
Denali. Sure
I've
is.
always wondered where that community is, because you got Riceville, and that's there where the hardware store is, and the old bank, and the utility company.
Yes.
But then you drive down the road,
Go east.
yeah, to where it ends at Cedar Springs, and that's where it just opens up to this real big, nice church.
That's right.
It's
right
in the middle
there.
of nowhere, sort of.
Middle of a cornfield.
So, wonder how that community, wonder where, what they consider East Denali.
I'd say all that around the church there, and the farms in that area, certainly consider them as part of that community.
Would they say we're not in Riceville, we're in East Denali?
No, I'd say they live in Riceville.
If you ask them, they live in East Denali.
Yeah, maybe so.
So I don't know where the line really is.
I don't know. They've got a Riceville postal address.
It's always been strange to me.
Yeah.
I think it's these old communities that were, like we've got Tasso here.
Yeah, there's a lot of them around here.
And I know where Tasso is, but I wouldn't be able to pinpoint it. I don't know where it ends.
Up near Charleston, right?
Yeah, it's over by the airport. That's not sort of to the left of the airport.
Yeah, in the direction.
Yeah. But I always wondered how those communities got names like that, but they didn't have a zip code. They don't have a specific name. And it'll say unincorporated sometimes.
Yeah, well, Riceville's unincorporated.
That's odd to me. I don't know exactly what unincorporated means either. Do you?
It just means it doesn't have a town
Means it doesn't really-
council, and it's just a name to that.
So why even say it's unincorporated? Why even say anything?
I couldn't tell you.
That's interesting.
It is.
Because you got a lot of places like that.
Yeah, there are. Well, I think they formed a basis for a community, but they just hadn't put all the workings together to make it official.
What about Linsdale?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Isn't Linsdale, you go further east before you get to Polk County, right in there is Linsdale. And then if you go a little north, you end up in Claxton.
Yeah, you're right. I know where Claxton is. Yeah. Claxton and Carlock and all those communities right there.
I'm not familiar with Carlock.
It's right near there.
Somebody should do a thing on these little communities. If you wanted to start your own city now, you couldn't do it. I wouldn't know where to start, would you? I mean,
I'm sure the state of Tennessee could give you some guidance.
do you have a lot of regulations you have to keep up with?
Quite a few. We're not a state institution, so we don't have to keep up with as many state regulations, but we follow our accreditors, Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, Council on Accreditation. They've got a host of standards that
Would they have more than the state?
Well, state institutions follow state regulations plus SACS accreditation. I mean, really, SACS is going to have the majority of your regulations, but there's also different federal regulations. We follow certain state regulations for Hope scholarships and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
On the courthouse square at 30 2nd Street is the law firm of Logan Thompson Law. Since 1965, they have served the legal needs for the good citizens of Cleveland-Bradley County. If you've got a problem, they're no problem. Give them a call.
What do you call that when they get money for school?
Hope scholarship?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the state aid, and then federal money, Pell
Grants.
Grants.
Yeah.
So we follow all kinds of regulations.
You'd have to follow every regulation to get every type of benefit or funds there are. Yeah. That's a whole nother world, isn't it?
And they all come in and audit you and want to see your books and how it worked out and how you're using it.
And you're thinking, hey, all we got is 3 students for that or something like that.
Yeah, we have a lot of students on Pell Dollars, well over 40%, and then Hope is far higher than that.
I remember when there wasn't hope.
Yeah,
Right?
me
That
too.
was from the lottery, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it came about in maybe 2000, somewhere around there, early 2000s.
I remember they passed the lottery around. Some of the representatives, senators said they'd pass it if the money went to education,
Yeah.
to scholarships. It's a good thing.
Oh, it's a phenomenal thing.
What about the Pell Grant? How's that evolve? Who?
The federal government funds that based on your income. So the lower your household income, the higher the Pell Grant you get.
Is that where you'd have to do the FAFSA?
The FAFSA,
form?
you've got to file the FAFSA to get about any aid, yes. And it is unfortunately still a complex process, even though it's became a little easier through the years.
I had to fill out those for my kids, and I don't even know if I filled them out right.
I've
They're
never
so
met
compli-
anybody that just enjoyed it or understood it.
I called my accountant, who's a CPA, certified public accountant.
He probably struggled too.
He wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's so complicated. I said, "Can you do this?" He wouldn't do it. He said, "I can't do it. That's too complicated." I thought, well, if you can't do it, how can I do it?
That's right. But we factor in a lot of aid ourselves using the FAFSA and that AGI score.
What if a person just went and said, "I'm gonna pay cash"?
We'll happily take their cash.
Would it be expensive?
Well, we have our own internal scholarships that we give. So, the average student's going to get a pretty decent merit award. And then if they just didn't want any other aid beyond that, it's still, it's affordable, but it's not cheap either.
What, 10,000 a year or
Yeah,
something?
probably a little more
Eight,
than that.
12?
Yeah.
Or is that a quarter? How you do that?
Well, it'd probably be about 14,000 a year if you had no aid.
If you had no aid and you was going to stay 4 years.
Yeah, but that's very, very unusual for a student to have no aid. Once you factor in all aid, we're often less expensive tuition than some other institutions around here, which we pride ourselves in. We want to be because we want to serve the students in our local area in this region.
I know a lot of people that's went there. Zane Harris went there. Glenn Ramsey. Do you know Glenn Ramsey? You
I don't
probably
think
don't
I
know
do,
him.
no.
He went there. Of course, Carl.
Yes.
What is Tennessee Wesleyan's main?
Top three majors right now are allied health, which could be nursing, dental hygiene, or occupational therapy, business, and education. Close second or close fourth would be health and human performance, communications, and things like that. So, but we cover a wide gamut. We've got between majors and minors, I think nearly 60 different paths that students can take, which is, so it's
60 different majors.
well, majors and minors,
Oh, yeah.
or different specialties within a major.
What makes, from a non-college type guy, what makes it, somebody says, I majored in this and I minored in that. What exactly does that mean?
Major is going to be your primary course of study. So you might major in finance, but you might get a minor in accounting and just have less hours in accounting.
So you could say that, you could say I have a minor in anything you wanted to. Is it on the certificate? Is it on your diploma?
We don't list majors or minors on our certificates. We list the degree, like a Bachelor of Science degree, or something like that. That makes it more vague,
Broad.
more broad.
Broad,
Yes, it's a better term, more broad.
Well, let me ask you this. When you came to, went home and told your wife, hey, looks like we're going back to Athens. Was she from Athens too?
No, she was from Nashville. And then she moved.
How did y'all meet?
We met at UTC. She was a student there, a year older than I am.
So she traveled from Nashville to UTC?
She sure did. And
What was the cause of that?
she just liked it, and the place she had looked at,
Was
wanted
it
to go
was
there.
it specific to her occupation?
She ended up majoring in human resources, going back to our major comment. And no, I think she just liked the institution and wanted to go there. And she wanted to move out of Nashville. She didn't want to go to MTSU. But she, thought UTC would be a good fit, and it ended up being. And so we met there, and we decided together we were moving to Athens, like I said, 5 years before I even took this job. But she keeps downsizing from Nashville to Chattanooga now to Athens, but I say she upsizes in quality. So,
And where did y'all meet at, or how did you meet?
we met at UTC. She was a student worker. She worked for the UTC chancellor in his office for her entire 4 years there as the student worker in that office, and I ended up meeting her. I could hear your raccoon.
We got a
up
raccoon
there.
up there.
Yeah,
Golly.
he's going crazy right now. But we met when she was working in that office, and I would stop in there and say hello, and I guess the rest is history from there. But she really has embraced Athens, and she's now serving on the Athens City Board of Education.
Ah.
And
Did she run an election, or did she get appointed?
she ran an election.
Was that tough?
She ran as a write-in candidate. They had 3 seats available and only 2 people on the ballot, so she ended up running as a write-in for the 3rd seat and won. And I was real proud of her for that. And she's a big champion of local education from the school board. She's also the PTO president at our kids' school, and she really loves it.
So let me ask you this: Is Athens Tennessee Wesleyan known for, as far as athletics? What would you say your level of athletics is?
Yeah, we have 20 athletic teams, ranging from pretty much anything you can think of except football. We've had football at a couple different times in our history, but not now, and I don't really see us
I guess
having
that's
that.
expensive, right?
It's expensive. It brings in a lot of students, but it's expensive, and you got to have a good facility, a good field for it, and we just don't have a place for a good field. But right now, we're part of the NAIA and a conference in our area, the Appalachian Athletics Conference. And our teams, many of them have functioned at some of the highest levels nationally. Last year, we had our men's and women's tennis team were both runner-up in the nation with NAIA. Our men's, well, not men's baseball, just baseball, has won the national championship twice in the past 11 years, 2019 and 2012. And we also had another individual student athlete win the national championship in the triple jump. I often tell people I couldn't do a single jump, so I think that's pretty impressive that she won in the triple jump.
And then what level was this? Did you say?
She was at the NAIA national level.
That's pretty big, isn't it?
It's a huge deal, yeah. And and that was just her junior year, so she's got one more year to go, and I have a strong feeling she'll do the same again, if not go even further in some other independent sports.
But y'all don't specifically, like UTC, or well, of course the Vols is football and basketball and everything. You got to have some of that for the students, don't you?
We do, and it creates a lot of camaraderie and excitement on campus. The students going to basketball games and soccer and lacrosse and, all those baseball, those different things.
Is Bo Perkinson, you know him?
I know Bo well. Yes, he's a good friend of mine.
He's a good friend of mine. He was in here the other day.
Was he?
Yeah. Took his picture.
There you go. Yeah, former mayor of Athens.
Former mayor of Athens. He was a big tennis player, wasn't
He
he?
sure was in his day. Yes, I've known Bo for a long time. Actually introduced him, I believe I was in the 8th grade at an event, and he was mayor at that time too, and I had the opportunity to introduce him, and we've known each other. We knew each other before then, but we've known each other ever since.
You know, he is my mother's sister's husband's cousin,
Okay.
Don Perkinson.
Okay.
And so they are somewhat related.
Yeah, it's a small world.
Well, we had my uncle, that uncle of mine came down and had Sunday lunch one day because he lives in Huntsville, and we invited Bo, and Bo came, and Bo and his wife came and ate.
Yeah, they're great people. I know them both.
So, what do you look forward to as far as Athens? Don't they have some events, like community events?
Oh, yeah, super events in Athens that the campus integrates well with. We've got Moo Fest in the summer, largely centered around Mayfield Dairy's legacy. And then Pumpkin Town in the fall, which has become a huge festival, bringing in thousands of people to downtown. And oftentimes our campus homecoming coincides with that, so that's nice. And, we've got Christmas events and tree lightings and all kinds of things. It's a fun place.
It really is. Athens is a great place. I go to the Ace Hardware there a lot.
Yeah.
Now, if you other than golf, you got to have some other interest.
Yeah.
Would you say it's church related?
No, certainly love going to church, but I enjoy fishing. Like I said, golfing. I'm a big reader. I love to work out in the yard.
What do you read mostly?
I've always loved reading newspapers, and I typically read 2 or 3 a day, and then I'll read various nonfiction things, biographies, or different leadership books, or I love local history books. I've got a big collection of those, and then having 2 young kids, a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, that consumes a whole host of time.
Have you read any Tyler Boyd's books?
Oh, absolutely. Tyler's a cousin of mine.
Is that right?
Yeah, he sure is.
Explain that relation.
It's not super close. I couldn't tell you the exact
Like
number.
third
probably,
cousin or
probably,
something?
yeah, fourth, something like that. Tyler and I have known each other for forever.
Well, he's smart, isn't he?
He is.
Sharp.
I've been the proofreader on several of his books, and before they've came out, and he's got the one coming out about Polk County here shortly, and I think he was on your show
He was.
maybe talking about that, and he did the one on Harry T. Byrne, which he and I
Burns
worked
was-
a little bit on the front end of, and he did a great job. He's found a niche, really capturing local history.
He really has.
Yeah, and I hope I know he'll keep it up.
He has a passion for it, buddy.
Yeah, I'm proud of him.
I mean,
he will leave a great
I'm
legacy.
glad he's not investigating me.
That's right. I'll discourage
He'll
you.
discourage it. He would be good. He would be good. He would dig into it.
Yeah, he's good. I do think although I was biased toward the Harry T. Byrne books, I have a connection to that, but I think the Polk County book's going to be one of his best.
Yeah, that one could strike some chords.
Yeah.
It might be just too early, but that may help it. Because the Harry Burns, you can ask 9 out of 10 people say, who you talking about?
Right.
Now, there's some old people that still knew the Biggs machine.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah, but that's a fascinating story.
that is fascinating.
That was an interesting time in Tennessee.
It really was.
Yeah, this area is fraught with history, good and bad.
You seem like the type of guy that would read a lot of books on self-help and
I read some. I don't as much anymore. I used to many years ago, but I've kind of let that go.
what was your goal for that? Other than the obvious, I guess.
I think just anything you can do to better yourself, or you learn something new, whatnot. But like I said, I really have transitioned away from that. Folks, I'll tell you one thing about being a university president that I would have never imagined is people give you books all the time. And I really do try to read the overwhelming majority that are given to me, but they pile up quick, so I'm always behind on my reading list.
The days of sitting down reading a book are kind of over with, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, about the only time a day I can find to do it is at night, maybe right before bed or something like that. But like I said, I do read a lot of newspapers, and I'll cover those in the mornings, typically.
What time do you get up?
5 a.m.
5 a.m.
Usually 7 days a week.
Why 5?
I don't know, it just seems like a good time to get
If
up.
I get up at 5, I pee and go back to bed.
I can't do that.
What time do you go to bed to get up at 5?
About 9:45, 10 o'clock.
Golly.
Yeah, about 7 hours of sleep is usually good enough.
Have you always been an early riser?
Always, as long
that-
as I can remember.
Any reason your parents got up
My
early? or?
mother, my grandmother were both early risers, and I think I just followed suit. They were always up drinking coffee or whatever early, and even though I don't drink coffee, I do get up early.
So you'll get up by 5 o'clock and you read
And usually newspapers, get ready for the day, do emails and stuff like that. Before I ever even walk out the door at 7:15.
So if you get email of the night before, you'll return it the next morning?
Usually.
Or do you think about it and then?
It just depends, but I try to respond as quick as I can on email. But an email can consume you too.
It can.
So you've got to pace yourself a little bit with it. You can spend your entire day looking at that screen if you let it. If you let yourself.
At different emails?
Usually, yeah, just different emails coming in. High vol. I feel like I get a lot during one day.
I counted it one day. I had 182 emails, texts, and phone calls.
That's not surprising.
And most of them wanted to know what time it was.
Yeah. I mean, the instant connectivity that we have right now, it's phenomenal, but it can be exhausting too.
There's got to be a way to manage it because I find sometimes I run out of time with all these things, and I think it's because I'm, maybe looking at my phone, and these little minuscule seconds, they probably add up by the end of the day.
Oh, no doubt. Well, I mean, even if you sit there and look at a news app or something on your phone for 10 minutes, that's 10 minutes you could have been doing something else, or check the stock market or whatever.
Or even, just look down to see if you got a text.
Yeah.
Maybe those add up. Maybe that gets you distracted and just add up.
Well, they do. And every second is precious to get something done. But that's part of the society we live in. Everything's go, go, go all the time. It's hard to pace yourself back. You really got to work at it.
If you was to be rooting for somebody, you could say, hey, root for him. Why? He doesn't have text messages. He'll get finished.
Well, I know a handful of people that don't have smartphones. They have flip phones. They don't text. They just call, and they do seem to be pretty happy.
Yeah. What I try to do is, if it's a text, I know it's semi-urgent and it's quick.
Yes.
And I can check that. I try to wait, But if it's email, I try to respond in the evening because it's generally a little more in depth, or they need some information that I probably wouldn't have with me.
Yeah. I mean, the challenge with email, I find, is if I'm out of the office, maybe going to a meeting or donor lunch or whatever, or if it's something that takes up an entire day, like this past Friday, we had a board meeting, my emails just got out of control because I wasn't sitting there working on it, periodically throughout the day.
Yeah.
So you've really got to now have to really catch up. I've done a little catch up this weekend, but I'll finish up tomorrow.
What about those people that send a group email, and somebody in there will reply to one person and not to everybody? And it's now you got to make sure they see it to tell that other person.
I think even worse is the folks that reply all to every email that you don't necessarily need to see the reply.
But how would you know if it's in a group?
Well, if it's like an invitation or something like that to something.
Well, yeah, but like say we're 10 of us are on this committee.
Yeah.
And they say, I'll get the so and so. If you reply to all, everybody's, because if they don't do it, we've got to.
Right.
So that's everybody's issues.
Yeah. It's an art when it comes to
It's an art,
email.
and it almost depends on what kind of business you're in.
Yeah. I mean, it's important. I believe in giving everybody timely responses, and some I take a little bit longer than others, but I know which ones I need to reply to as quick as possible.
Boy, getting emails is really added a level of responsibility and obligation to us.
Yeah, I mean, I've never worked in an environment not having emails, so that's really all I know at this point.
I have.
Yeah.
I've worked in environments where you had to, I remember when it was a big deal because you had fax machines. If you had to go where they had fax machines.
Yes. And that's almost a thing of the past.
Yeah, I was trying to fax something earlier, scan and which now it's called Scan, I guess.
Scan.
But I had to switch printers, and I don't know how to do that. And if I learn, they'll change it.
Yeah.
So that's not good.
Well, that's part of it.
If you hadn't have been if you hadn't have gone into finance and you hadn't have gone into the college, what do you think you'd have done? And you know you weren't going to be a lawyer. What could you see yourself doing also?
Probably something, business, entrepreneurial
If it-
related, or, I've always been a public servant at heart, whether it be working for the state or federal government or something like that. I feel like there's good can be had by doing good for other people. And not that I'm champion of big government, but I still think, the government has a role and you need good people to serve in it. So something like that. But I really think it would have been business related if it weren't higher education now.
So it'd be higher education, business, and maybe some type of a public service.
Yeah, elected office or something like
yeah.
that. Yeah. That's what I always, and I touch all of those in some way every single day now.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking. You're actually doing the sort of the same.
Yeah, I just come about it with a different angle. I work with business leaders. Tennessee Wesleyan is a great institution, but it has a business component to it. And then I touch, various different government entities pretty much every day, elected officials and everything else.
Do you ever go to the? You have to go. You eat the cafeteria every day, or do you go just on occasion?
No, I eat there. Try to eat there once or twice a week, and then I'll go out to lunch with different folks.
Is that cafeteria? Is it subbed out, or is it all
Aramark
in-house?
runs it. Yeah, and it just got a nice renovation over the summer, so you'll have to come back up and see it. It looks really good.
So you sub that out to them, and they
Aramark has ran it for about 42 years now.
Is that right?
And we're one of their older clients, our longest clients.
So that's something you don't have to worry about.
Right.
That's a big deal.
We still work closely with them, but they have the operational management of it. And there's members of our team that liaison with them on a daily, if not multiple times a day basis.
You're not telling them who to hire to wash dishes or nothing like that?
No, they do all their own hiring.
What about the menu?
They do that. They'll work with us if we've got something special or things like that.
Do they have 3 meals a day?
They do. Yeah, have to for residential students.
We forget we talk about, you're from there and you're working there and all this, but think about the student that's come from how far off?
Oh yeah, we've got students last fall from 31 different countries.
So it's not just like there's a few from South Georgia, 31 countries.
31
so they're
countries.
coming down here, and this is a big deal to them.
Oh, it's a huge deal. 28 different states.
And they're staying on campus.
Yes.
They have nothing to eat. You got to feed them 3 times a day.
Right. You want them to have a great experience. Yeah, that's what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. It's all about the student experience, and food's a part of that.
Yeah, and their parents want to know they're eating.
That's right. So they need to have a good dining experience. It's not the same thing every time. It needs to be a revolving menu, not a lot of overlap. But we hear a lot of positive comments about dining.
It was good when I ate there. I ate there with Carl.
Yeah. Yeah, Carl enjoys it. I've eaten there several times with him.
He also likes Captain D's in Cleveland.
I hadn't been to him with Captain D's. We've been to Olive Garden and Stacy's and a few other places.
Yes.
Barbecue.
Stacy's, I'm not sure if they'll make it. The food's okay, but
it was very good when we were there.
it was good. I had meatloaf.
Yeah, I had fried chicken.
Fried chicken.
But I think they did have meatloaf that day.
I had the fried chicken and peas. I love peas.
Yeah, me too. The fried chicken was excellent. I ate way too much. Which I try not to do at lunch, because then you feel like you need to take a nap.
Oh, I know it. I don't feel that way unless I eat bread. If I just stay away from the bread, I'm fine.
Yeah. I understand.
So do you think is this position you're in, do you think you're now been there long enough to get comfortable in it? Because it's been what?
13 months. Yeah, well, about 14 months now.
Is there some things you thought, man, I had no idea how hard this was going to be?
There's always those parts to the job, but overall, the positives far outweigh the challenges. Every higher education institution has some challenges, but we've got way more opportunities than things to address.
But there are some things there that you thought, boy, you just thought,
there always
I had
are.
no idea that was this hard.
Well,
Do you have a better respect for the people that were in your position now that you're in it?
oh, no doubt. I mean, you don't know a role until you step in there. I'll tell you this, when I pulled into the parking lot July 1, 2022, I sat there in my car for a minute and thought, what on earth am I doing? Because, after I'd been somewhere else for so many years, you become comfortable where you were and you know everything and everybody, the ins and outs. But within 2 days, I absolutely loved what I was doing, and I've never stopped loving it ever since.
Did you know what your role was? I mean, I know you're running the college, but you didn't know the day-to-day stuff. I mean, what do you do the first hour?
Well, I had planned out my first day pretty carefully of meeting with different people and academic leaders and other campus leaders and donors and students and things like that.
Was it more like there's a new sheriff in town, or was it more like, hey, let's just continue doing the good work you're doing, and if you need help, let me know?
I don't think any good leader, in my opinion, that comes is not going to come in and just flip the place upside down. I think that's a mistake. I think you need to take some time to study what's going on and make some really informed decisions. And we changed some things over the last year or so, but none of them were changed the first day or the first week. It's really important to listen to people and get feedback on what's going on. And oftentimes, people will tell you the things that are going wrong, and those are the things you go to fix first. But to just have a change day one is often not, in my opinion, the best approach.
Where do you get your inspiration?
I like to, certainly through prayer, and I've often been someone that has watched others. I've been blessed with a number of good mentors in my life, and I often think, what would they do? Or what did they do in certain situations? And then I'm also inspired by the students that we serve. I mean, that's why we exist as an institution. And if they succeed, the campus succeeds, the community succeeds, and the region succeeds. And that's what we want to see. Tennessee Wesleyan is a major economic driver, not just in McMinn County, but outside of McMinn County too. And we want to keep that reputation up for many, many years to come.
When you say economic driver, how many, I know it's 40 acres, and how many students are there?
Almost 1,100 students.
So 1,100 students, and that means faculty of what?
Faculty and staff are about 175.
So 1,300 people tomorrow are going to be involved in Tennessee Wesleyan.
And then we also have a campus, part of that number, in Knoxville.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand that. Explain that part.
We've got nursing and occupational therapy are both in Knoxville.
Like a satellite? How long has that been there?
That campus has been there about 20 plus years.
So is it a small college?
It's a building, 2-story building. One site is there on Cogdell Road in Knoxville, and then there's another clinical site and occupational site at Covenant Health Fort Sanders campus downtown.
So somebody had the idea to let's have a satellite.
Yeah, Fort Sanders ran their own nursing program, and they needed to find a higher education institution to run it, so they chose Tennessee Wesleyan. I think it was around year 2000 that occurred, and we've been really close partners with them ever since. So the nursing school is now part of our campus, and we've added the occupational therapy school, which is a master's degree program, and then we've also added, as part of that allied health curriculum, a dental hygiene school that was part of Hiwassee College in Madisonville. That closed, and we took over that program, and it's a very high-performing program now.
Is that one in Madisonville, is that, do they still have the nursing school there?
Well,
Or
the
did it all
campus
cut
the
down?
campus closed entirely in 2019.
2019, wonder why.
I think just a variety of events that occurred. Just wasn't
That
sustainable.
was a really big staple there.
Yeah, it was a major staple for Monroe County.
Yeah.
But we've, Monroe County is very much so in our service area, and we spend a lot of time working with that county. It's important for us to be there.
And now, Etowah's getting this new plant, aren't there? A new plant?
Piedmont Lithium, yes.
Yeah.
Sure is.
What, 600 people employees?
I believe
is that
it's
right?
something like that, yeah. Fairly good paying jobs, too.
They say that is really going to be a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, this area is, a lot of industry looks at this area.
Wonder why they chose up there. I guess it's got a pretty good industrial park. They got
I think so.
the high-speed power,
Yeah.
3 sources of power or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure something
Yeah.
like that. But it was, I think Piedmont has a place in North Carolina as well. I don't know exactly how far it is from here, but then that site too, and some other sites as well. But I think the one in North Carolina is the closest.
So the Tennessee Wesleyans in the higher tier of employers, not employers, but I guess a big part of the.
Yeah, I mean, we're a significant employer. I mean, there's other employers like Denso, that are
Yeah.
that have far greater numbers of employees. But we provide teachers and nurses and business leaders and all that to the local community, which and the region, which really makes a big difference.
What percentages would you say is from out of state?
Of
Or
our
not state,
students.
but maybe, not out of state. I guess that have to live on campus because it's just too far.
We have about 350 of our students that live on campus, but then once they get to their senior year, they can move off campus. So, it could be a senior from Nebraska that lives in an apartment in town or something like that.
It's interesting to me that somebody that far away would locate a specific school somewhere away and decide to go there. I mean, that's a big decision for somebody at that age.
Well, there's certain programs that draw them in, like dental hygiene as an example. There's not a lot of dental hygiene programs. So they have to be on the lookout, and that program often has a wait list of students wanting to get in. And athletics often brings students here because we recruit students from all over the place to come play at TWU.
And because maybe that's what their scholarship's in or what they're best in, or
Yeah.
because if you're wanting to be a doctor, you can't go to school that don't have anything related to doctoring.
No, and we've had a number of, although we don't have a medical school, a number of students complete their pre-medical training and then go to medical school. A number of alums that are doctors. It's a great, liberal arts education is a great education for medical school or law school or any sort of professional degree.
My son graduated from Lee, and he's going to go to medical school, and he has to take that MTAC
Yeah.
class. Boy, it's a lot of work.
It's a tough test.
Yeah, I think he's studying for it now as we speak, or he better be.
Yeah.
They could almost get jaded because by the time they graduate and they take that and then they get accepted, that's why it takes so long for these people to go.
It's very difficult, absolutely. I mean, you've got to be extremely committed to multiple years to complete medical school. I commend anybody that does it.
Yeah, and to hope you're smart enough.
Yeah.
Because if you get halfway, and I think that weeds them out too.
Sure it does. I mean, they want students that are going to be high performing, so they work hard to get them in there and understand what they're going to do.
Do you think would you say that a big part of your job is recruiting people?
Oh,
More
absolutely.
students.
Yeah, 100%. I spend a
'Cause
lot of time doing that and working with our admissions team to do it.
Because you only have a customer for 2 years, right? If they're
4.
going, or unless they go to the Hope Scholarship.
Hope's 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we're a 4-year institution.
So if you get a customer there they may just be there for 4 years.
Right.
Then you got to find another customer.
But then they could go get a master's degree. But yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we're always filling that next freshman class. You know,
It's almost all about the freshman class, isn't it?
well, and transfer students. Well, you know, we have transfers come from Cleveland State, Roane State, Pellissippi State. I mean, that happens all the time after they finish their 2-year degree. Then they want to come to us to finish
Where's
their 4
Pellissippi
years.
State?
It's in Knoxville.
Oh,
It's
Roane. That's right up like.
Harriman.
Yeah. Yeah, that wouldn't be far for them, would it?
No.
Y'all would be the
Yeah, probably about the closest.
Right.
45 minutes. So they could go to Knoxville too, but we'd like to think we're a better choice.
So how old are your kids?
5 and 7, boy and girl.
Boy, that's something. You're lucky you had a boy and girl. A lot of people have to have 3 and 4 till they get
That's right.
one of each.
We're very blessed.
Are they pretty close?
Yes, they
Seem to
are. They're great. They're great friends most of the time. But like any good siblings,
Who's the oldest?
The girl's the oldest. They might fight.
Just a year?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, they're fun. Ball of energy.
I bet.
Never stop.
How'd you end up at East Denali?
My mother's family had gone there when I was growing up, and then we didn't go there for a number of years, and it was just a great church, and we thought we'd give it a try, and we've been back there for 6 or 7 years.
Don't they have online services too?
They do.
Have it online? I've seen it before.
I sure do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great church. You have to come visit us sometime.
I will sometime. I'm Church of Christ.
Yeah.
So, what would you say that is in the future? You got to have some thoughts of where you see yourself in 30 years.
Right now, I see myself as really committed to growing Tennessee Wesleyan, and who knows where that'll go, but we have a strategic plan goal of getting to 1,500 students in roughly the next 8 years.
That's aggressive, isn't it?
And it is aggressive, but I'm determined to do it, and I think we're already making some strides in accomplishing that, and I definitely want to see us get there, and who knows what the future holds. But I would have never predicted I was here, so I might as well not start predicting now.
Well, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, if I do, I'll be wrong.
You know, that's really true. If we worry about trying to predict it, and we'd have never predicted where we was at now
That's right.
5, 6 years ago.
I've been wrong more times than I was right.
What do you do mostly on weekends?
Kids' activities and catch up with them. And
At 5 and 6 years old, you don't have a clue yet
no.
what activities
They're in dance and flag football and baseball and all that. So we're that's starting up for us, but it's a ton of fun.
Where do you live whereabouts in Athens? Not exactly.
We live near the library there off of Ingleside Avenue, kind of near Mayfield Dairy.
Yeah. Well, Mayfield's they sold out, right? It's not the Mayfield
Yeah, the family doesn't own it, but now the Dairy Farmers of America own it. It's a great brand. We're lucky to have it in Athens.
What did you call it? Moo?
Moo Fest.
Moo Fest,
Yeah. Every summer.
They still have that. You can still go there and eat. Don't they have a little
Yeah, they've got a visitor center.
visitor center? Yeah. You get ice cream sandwiches and stuff.
Yeah, you can get dipped ice cream, and I think it's $1 a scoop, maybe. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've been, so don't. If it's not $1
It may be
a scoop,
$3
I'll
now.
make up the difference.
It
if
may
I'm
be
wrong.
$3 now.
It may be. Yeah, the family's still really engaged in Athens, though, which we're lucky to have.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know if they
Yeah.
were. What's his first name?
Scotty.
Scotty, yeah.
You'll have to
Where's
have
the
it.
bow tie?
Yeah, he'd be a great
I
person.
know him
for
that
you to
much.
interview. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Well, listen, Tyler, I appreciate you coming. It's really been great.
My honor, D.
Hey,
Thank
I
you,
wish
sir.
you well. I
Yes,
got a
sir.
feeling you're going to really be trying.
Well,